Brakathia Howell, Brakathia Shai, Brakathia Howell, Brakathia Shai, Brakathia Howell, Brakathia Howell, Bashim Shai, Bahashim, Chakodash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to the hopeful elect out there, you Akim to Zadakim, that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. On the pre-Shaman, this week's topic is going to be entitled, Will the Brics currency overtake the US dollar as the world reserve currency? Okay? The short answer is no, and that will very unlikely to happen. What's inspiring this lesson? Well, Vladimir Putin recently displayed a Brics note. Now, Brics is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Okay, and you have to ask yourself, well, what is the purpose of Brics? Brics is not intended to create their own currency to overthrow the dollar. Brics is a payment system. Brics is a payment system put together by these several nations to mitigate sanctions that's put against them. And the reason I want to do this lesson is because I've realized that there are a lot of YouTube channels that are they're not primarily focused on just giving actual information, like factual information. They're more focused on sensationalizing things to make a profit, right? To get more views and say things like Brics is out, dollar's dead, and it's just like realistically speaking, that's something that just would not happen. You know, if it does happen, that's something that would take many decades to happen, to transition world currencies. It takes a very, very long time, and it wouldn't be advantageous for these Brics nations to want to have a Brics currency, and I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to try my best to explain why in simplest terms so brothers could understand and people could be edified. Okay, first things first is liquidity, right? Liquidity. The US dollar accounts for 51% of the world reserve currency. Followed by that is the euro, which is 20%. Now, one of Brics' strongest ally, China, is about 4%, right? What does that mean? That means it's very hard. There's not much trading volume for these other countries. There's a large trading volume for the United States dollar. Okay, when you are trading, there's a seller and a buyer, right? The seller is typically denoted as the ask, the buyer is the bid. Okay, so this bid-ask spread is the spread. The more people trade in a particular asset, the tighter that spread is. The larger the spread is. So I'll give you an example. If you're selling Russian currency, right, and I go to trade Russian currency for my US dollars, and you only have maybe 100,000 Russian currency, we could do very small volumes. I could come in there, you could give me 1,000 Russian, very small fee, right? Very small fee, because, you know, we're doing small transactions. Now, what if I come in there with $10 billion? You don't have anything close to that in your reserves. So the fee to exchange will dramatically increase. And it's very equivalent to if you ever traded penny stocks. I did this many years ago. And you put a large amount of capital in a very small penny stock with not much volume. The instant you get in that position, you are down on your money because the spread is so wide, and you just moved a lot of capital into something that's not trading. So the spread is very wide, and you come in at a negative. And here's the problem with that. The problem with something that is not liquid is, God forbid, if you have to pull your money out, a bunch of people want to pull their money out, you could be fucking stuck waiting a very long time. So liquidity is a major reason why the United States dollar will remain the world's currency. It will remain the world's currency. If you're asking, is there a world currency? We already have one. That's the United States dollar, and it's extremely liquid. 51% of the world's reserves is in dollars. So Brics is not so much about coming up with its own currency. That's not really their intentions. Their intention is this: to create an alternative payment system. Because of what? Because of sanctions. Now, let me explain that. Most international trade, and I'm going to go into some scriptures, most international trade, okay, is done with the SWIFT payment system, okay? SWIFT is a messaging system. It's a messaging payment system. It's telling Bank A to send such and such or do such and such to Bank B. That's the messaging system, okay? That's SWIFT. It's been around for 50 years. But it doesn't settle transactions. International transactions are settled by something. It's settled by a broker, a clearance house called CHIPS. Now, CHIPS is a U.S.-based clearance house that settle transactions, and it's, you know, it's U.S.-based. So, SWIFT, CHIPS, IMF, World Bank, these are all sort of Western powers. And so when sanctions are issued on Russia, it makes it very hard to use these different payment systems. Now, let me simplify it. If you have Cash App and you want to send me money, there's a small fee, right? You might pay some small fee, whatever. But Cash App is not settling the money in your bank account, right? It's just a messaging thing between me and you, right? This is what sanctions could do. If I put a sanction on you and just you, I could say anytime you use Cash App, you have to pay a $20 fee. Anybody sending you money, anybody issuing you out money, you got to pay a $20 fee. Nobody will want to trade with you. You wouldn't want to do trade because you're paying these crazy fees, okay? And even if you get past that, CHIPS, which is US based, could even put in additional sanctions, all right? Meaning we have to pay even more fees to settle it. So if you ever used MoneyGram before and you send some money to your country, you might pay $5. Imagine all of a sudden you have to pay a damn near 50%. Sometimes even more, okay? The fee is more than the money you're trying to send. It becomes extremely different, and that halts trade. Now, Russia has had to fight through over 16,000 sanctions. So what Vladimir Putin did was he came up with a Brics payment system. And what is Brics payment system? Brics payment system is a payment system, okay, that uses blockchain technology, all right, to encourage and have trades, okay, between the countries that are in Brics. So they could use their own inter-country currencies to still commute trades, and this is going to help them ward off sanctions. So the United States put sanctions on you, guess what? I could still do a particular transaction with my Brics payment system, and it wouldn't affect me. I wouldn't have to rely on the United States dollar. Now, the United States dollars could still be used on the Brics payment system, okay? So that's really the main purpose of Brics, is to not create a currency to topple the US dollar, because that wouldn't be advantageous to anybody. I mean, India, like I said, India is an ally to the United States. They still very much use the dollar and want to use the dollar. They're not trying to come up together and create this one currency between them. No, they're trying to create a payment system, which they already have, okay, which uses inter-country trade currencies, encourages it, okay? That way, when sanctions are put on these countries, they can still commute and trade. Now, this is the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 2. It says, "And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear." And this beast that we're reading about is a so-called white man, and his different prominent empires. Primarily speaking, the leopard is the Greeks, Alexander, and the feet, or the end of the body, okay, is the bear, which is the Russians. And does that mean that Russia will be the next superpower up after the United States? Not in the way that these other camps teach. Not in the sense that Russia's going to be ruling for X amount of years. No, it means that when we read about 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, okay, that war that Yahushua is going to fight, and all these countries allying themselves, that's going to be led by Russia, because the United States in World War III will be destroyed, okay? The United States America would already be wiped off the map with the nuclear missiles, with the beams from the chariots. Israel will be wiped off the map. So who's going to lead the charge? The charge is going to be led by Russia. Russia's the second most powerful in terms of nuclear power, all right? They will lead command, okay? So that's how come you see Russia acting as a guard onto other nations, coming up with like Brics payment systems for countries to help out countries like Iran. And it's already setting the stage up to be a leader, okay, to other nations. It doesn't mean that they're going to create a currency that's going to topple the United States dollar and all that type of stuff. It's just it would take very long for something like that to happen. And I don't believe anything like that will happen. I think we'll be far gone out of here before that's even to make brothers understand. Certain brothers that's traded, if you trade stocks, that's like saying I'm going to make this penny stock overpower the S&P 500, which is very, very unlikely to happen. That's something that's been, the S&P 500 is something that's been around for centuries. It's a standard for just say this penny stock, everybody's going to use it now. It just wouldn't make any sense. So to have this currency pop out of nowhere and just take over, highly unlikely. Like I said, China only accounts for 4% of the world's currency. Okay, so the feat of it being like the bear, the Russians leading, that's going into that second Ezra the 13th chapter. Okay, it doesn't mean that they're going to come in power. We have to fucking go through Russian rulership and all that nonsense. It says, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, going into Britain, and the dragon gave him his power. Now the dragon gave him his power is Satan, all right? Which ultimately, Satan is controlled by the Most High, all right? Satan gave him that power, but that power came from the Most High to fulfill scriptures like Genesis and prophecies like Genesis the 27th chapter, saying that, you know, the fatness, Esau's blessing shall be the fatness of the earth. And scriptures like Job 9:24, the earth given into the hand of the wicked. So really it's the Most High using his left hand side, spiritual demon Satan, to prop Esau up. And his power and his seat and great authority. Right. Now, and I want to bring this out because I had mentioned it. Now, yes, Russia, you already see Russia is being set as the forefront, as a very prominent power to be relied on by Eastern nations, okay? But the West still holds a majority of the power. The IMF, International Monetary Fund, they're going to use dollars, if not euros, and these countries, they just have too much power. They have too much liquidity in the global markets, you know? So it's the payment system. It's the Brics payment system, which is already being used. And China is also using... one thing I also want to mention about the Brics payment system is, remember how I talked about Swift's messaging and chips is settling? Well, the Brics payment system does messaging and settlements, all right? So it's, you know, it's very quick. You know, you know, you get your money settled right away. So they're trying to encourage these nations to use their own currencies when trading in Brics. But like I said, I mean, if you want to use hundreds of billions of dollars, you're gonna need dollars, man. You're gonna need liquidity. You know, you want to use liquidity. You want these transactions to be smooth. If you ever traded something with a huge bid and ask spread, meaning not enough buyers and not enough sellers, you'll find it's very hard to get in and very hard to get out, and it becomes illiquid. You know, and that's the last thing you want. God forbid something happen, you're gonna be left holding the bag because you can't get out. You know, there's not enough buyers, there's not enough sellers. So, like I said, this I don't think that's their primary goal. A lot of it is just political theater too, you know, because most people won't take the time to look into it. You know, got YouTubers that would just probably just run with it. And anyways, it says, "Be thou prepared." Ezekiel 38:7. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be a guard unto them. And this is going in Russia, being a guard unto these different Eastern countries. Primarily a lot we see it in the Middle East. You know, they've said like, look, we will take action if Israel, all right, attacks Iran. So, which ultimately these two nations are going to be the ones that's going to escalate World War III, namely the so-called Jews, the state of Israel, because the scripture says the least of the flock shall draw them out. The state of Israel doing all that provocation in the Middle East and poking at the hornet's nest, all right, is ultimately going to drag nations into World War III. The only thing we're waiting on again is that RFID microchip. Now you might say to yourself, well, where does the RFID microchip sit in, it falls in terms of, you know, currency and CBDC and all this stuff? Well, the microchip, it's not relying on any currency, right? It's a payment system, okay? It's no difference in messaging, right? So you don't need a toppled currency or anything like that to use a chip and do transactions. That mark of the beast, you can use any currency with it because it's just another payment system, you know? Well, it's not just another payment system like something you should take lightly, but it is a payment system. It's not a currency. We're going to read about that. So what I want to tie that into is also inflation real quickly before I jump back to the mark of the beast. Inflation, right? You might say to yourself, damn, there's 51% of the world's currency is the United States dollar. That's a lot of dollars in circulation. And in fact, it's true, but it's to the United States benefit. This is how come the United States has never collapsed under inflation. This is how come they could keep printing money and you'd be like, damn, how the fuck we still operating as a country? Because the United States has that factor that the other countries can't. So think of inflation as pumping air into a balloon. You pump air, you pump air, you pump air into a balloon, eventually it will pop. But the United States have the benefit of pumping air, and can let a little bit of air out, let a little bit of air out of the balloon out. And how do they do that? By issuing out dollars to other countries that use the dollar as a reserve currency. So that's how they could print more money and not collapse the society, because again, the whole world is relying on the US dollar. That's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. You know, that's just it would just take too fucking long, and we don't have decades to be here. James 5:2 reads, it says, your riches are corrupted and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered. And we know that gold and silver doesn't oxidize. So this is going into the riches of America, and it is extremely devalued. But not just America, every currency. Every currency is being devalued over time because they're printing more of it. It's just that the United States has the benefit, again, of issuing out its country, being the world currency, okay, to ease its inflation issues, okay, and use it as leverage. It says, and the rest of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasures together for the last days. Okay, and the scriptures also say the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. So these different elites that are collecting all these different riches and gold and different assets, tangible assets, guess what? You're laying it up for the elect, because you know when World War III happened and this place is destroyed, guess what? The elect is going to come down. New Jerusalem is going to come down and get everything back. The world that was promised to Yahushua and us being joint heirs. Revelations 3:16 going into the RFID market chip, which is the mark of the beast. Anybody teaching otherwise is a false prophet. It says, and he calls us all, both small and great, rich and poor. I like how it says rich and poor, because there is no middle. They're getting rid of that middle class. They just want rich and poor people. And, you know, they're getting very close to doing that. It says, free and bond, so whether you're in jail or not in jail, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Right, so this chip is going to be put in any part of your body. You're slated for destruction. That's when you read Revelations, the 14th chapter, the 9th verse. There's a penalty to take the chip, and that penalty is damnation, fire, and the nuclear missiles. It says, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So this is a transactional thing. Okay, the RFID microchip is used for transaction. It's a payment system. It doesn't depend on any currency. Okay, it's a payment system. So the dollar doesn't need to collapse for this thing to come to pass. The RFID chip being mandated on a global scale. Okay, it doesn't have to. All right. The chip could be used in dollars. It could be used in whatever currency. It's a form of payments. It's a form of transactions. All right, that's going to be forced and implemented worldwide. Okay. Here is the wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. That's on the UPC barcode. The first two lines 6, the middle one 6, the last one 6, which is Chi, Psi, Stigma. Okay, and that mark, when you read it, is charagma, which, if you have a Septuagint, the word charagma comes from the word charax. It's the same word that you see in the gospel when it talks about trenches. Yahushua mentions trenches. When you look up trenches, you're going to get a charax, or a palisade, a stake. That's what it looks like. The RFID chip being inserted with a needle look like a palisade being inserted. So yeah, you know, I just figured I'd do a lesson on that. And I know as we approach the end, there's going to be a lot of disinformation getting spewed out. So you got to really vet the things that you're reading. You know, a lot of fake articles. I remember this one article came out with Elon Musk creating robots to nurse 9-month-old kids, and it was just some shit on Facebook that went viral. But he never said that. One, that's something that's been around for 100 years. That's been brought up for 100 years, but that's not something that's done or practiced, or if they even have the capability of doing. So that's just one example, man. There's many different things that's coming out. So I know with this whole Brics currency and the political theater and the image of seeing certain things, you have certain channels, YouTube channels that like to sensationalize things for views. So I said, you know what? Let me look into it. Let me do a lesson on it. And I hope you brothers are edified. So I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushua, Ba'Hashem Rachak Kodash. That belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to the hopeful elect out there. You Akim to Sadakim that do this thing now, most truth and sincerity. Shalom.